what I've seen in my practice, what I've seen personally and now seen through Remedy is we do 6 minutes at 39 degrees. And within that, we've just seen great success. And I could do more. I do ice baths all the time, but doing more isn't better. Younger generations are drinking less and less. And if you remove the one thing that everyone does when they socialize, they're going to need a new experience.
Larry Ellison's somebody that's sort of hit the press over the last week where they're using AI to make some really interesting predictions of when it comes to drugs and being able to predict what will happen to people as they get older. And you could kind of imagine where that is going to take us over the next few years.
Our medical system has taught you symptom, drug, symptom, surgery. And I think AI is going to find cures-ish in medications and surgery. I think we're going to learn a lot. But I think we need to understand that being on medication is not the result of being healthy.
Welcome to this week's episode of L.I.F.T.S, the podcast that explores new trends and deeper insights shaping the health and wellness space. Today we've got a great conversation. And Mo, what's been happening in your world over the last week?
Well, I think one, it's definitely de-thawed here in DC, and our guest here is in New York, and we've been in like the tundra, I feel like, for the last couple of weeks. So I was actually able to go out in DC. I was actually with Tom Hale, the CEO of Aura, for a couple of hours right in DC. We didn't have our jackets on, which is kind of really nice. But no, I'm a little bit grounded, Matthew. I know you came back. I saw on Instagram you were at some fitness event last week that you were posting about. I'm grounded until the Connected Health and Fitness Summit, which we're both going to be at in February.
You're grounded.
That's what I'm saying. I'm actually grounded physically, mentally, all of the groundings, all the groundings.
We've got an interesting guest, Mo. Will you do the honors?
I will. I'm really happy. I've been meaning to get Dr. Jonathan Leary on for over a year, so I'm really glad to have him on. I've had an opportunity to have gotten to know him. I mean, even from a professional standpoint, a personal standpoint, he is an incredible thought leader. But I do have a bio here that I want to get through for those of you who might not know him. Our guest today is the founder and CEO of Remedy Place, the world's first social club with locations in New York and Los Angeles, and plans for global expansion. And since I've known him, he's actually opened up a new location in Soho as well. Dr. Leary is at the forefront of self-care and social wellness movement, garnering worldwide attention. He's got an incredible passion to help many people feel better. At the intersection of design, self-care, and human connection, he and Remedy Place are leading a profound shift in the $10 trillion healthcare industry. And look, he has collaborated with brands like Polar, Soho House, and has been a guest speaker and a thought leader in various industries. So we're really glad to have you on. Thank you for joining this episode of L.I.F.T.S.
Thanks for having me. And I could not be more grateful to finally do this. I'm sorry that it's taken so long.
Mo and I we're having a chat like prior, and we generally talk about stuff that's going on in the industry and business models and that kind of stuff, which I love to talk about with you. But one of the things I thought we'd do, which is a little bit different to normal, but I was reading a couple of articles that you did, and Mo and I had a conversation about mouth taping, and it seems as though you like to keep your mouth shut at night. But as I was sort of going down the article, I noticed that there was another comment about what you're doing to enhance your jawline. And I'm kind of looking there, and you do have a really nice jawline. So tell us a little bit about some of the maybe unusual, unconventional sort of habits that are part of your sort of routine, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have so many routines, and I always in order to add something new, I always pair it with an existing one. So they always build. And then some of them are complicated because there's, a handful. But at the end of the day, when I do my red light treatment, I just chew on it's this thing that you bite down on, and I do a certain amount of sets for 10 minutes. I've been doing it for about a year and a half. In between that and the mouth tape, it actually started to really change my face in a cool way, which makes sense. Just like any other muscle in the body, when you strengthen it, there's hypertrophy and it grows. And as you start leaning out, it's a very simple hack that has definitely helped me and many other friends that I have introduced to it. But since the TikTok and on social media, it's kind of everywhere now. But people are really more aware of the mouth taping and this like jaw exercising tool. But both are incredible.
I'm just curious, do you have any other simple hacks that you kind of do on a daily basis that you can recommend to people?
Yeah, from my hair. Now it's been about a year and a half of this hair routine, and it's drastically changed my hair, and that was a big one for me because it was a sensitive subject for me. Um, but I do, yeah, I do a comment like I usually don't use medication unless it's an absolute emergency, and I try to always treat anything holistically. But I was at a point where I was like, either do I just shave my head or do I, try a topical in combination of some of the technology I use and some of the holistic remedies. And I was like, what, I'm just gonna give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? And I did a topical blend of medication, 3 different oils that I use for my hair, and then the red light. That's how I close off my night every night. So we do 30 minutes on this medical red light device while it like helps push everything in while I'm chewing on this ball. It looks a little crazy. But the hair difference has been probably the biggest shift that I've seen on something appearance wise. And I think a lot of people are sensitive or struggling with hair. So it's always a nice thing to talk about.
You're a strong advocate for cold therapy, and I certainly recently, like, there's a lot of people that have got into it, and I think as information's come out, there seems to be a few different camps, and I think Huberman, as an example, has been talking about when to do cold therapy and in relation to exercise, and then there's been I've seen some recent studies where they've been talking about you don't actually need to do quite as much as what people are thinking, and don't need to stay in there as long as probably what some people are doing. So where are you? Like, clearly you're an advocate for it, cold showers and cold plunges. But as someone who's probably at the cutting edge of this, like what's your recommendations for the average person, probably like myself and Mo, that enjoy it but want to probably do the optimum amount to improve our sort of overall health and sort of energy levels.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I get asked this all the time, and I'm like, if I'm speaking to an audience, like I was just speaking at a conference, and someone's like, "How long should I go in for?" And I was like, that's like everyone in the audience asking me how much weight should they lift or how long of a run should they go on. To create a recommendation or to say that one scientific research article said this, I think we're kind of missing the point. And I think people go to the gym to train, right? And they go and they use stress and weight as resistance to get stronger. When I'm thinking about cold or heat therapy, I'm thinking about training the thermoregulatory system, right? It's an external stress in your body's ability to respond to that stress and get better over time. Just like once you start mastering it, it's just like a workout. Like you can't do the same thing forever. You need to find different ways to manipulate the stress so that once you start adapting, and we will all adapt differently based on our thermoregulatory systems, it's not as easy to say. So I think to ever say that there's a golden temperature or golden amount of time isn't really fair, because I could have someone that does ice bath 3 times a week and they're so stressed, or they went out drinking and they're like, why is my performance so bad in the ice bath today? And I'm like, well, just like you can overtrain, if you're overstressed, your body's not going to perform. And I think there's a really big misconception there. What I've always found is when someone starts shivering in the water, that's the response to get them out. And like if you're going in, you're calm, you get the breath under control. But once the body starts to shiver, I don't care what your record is, what you normally do. That's really the body's way of telling me, like, maybe this is we're getting over that stress where it's probably not good for you. But what I've seen in my practice, and what I've seen personally, and I've seen through Remedy, is we do 6 minutes at 39 degrees. And within that, we've just seen great success. And I could do more. You know, I do ice baths all the time, but doing more isn't better, right? So, like, figuring out what works for you at your current stress levels and also how much you want to push your adaption in that category. Like, I kind of look at all self care as almost a stress that you adapt to, right? Hot, cold, compression, think of an adjustment, think of an acupuncture needle. All of these things that we're doing are stressing the system, and your body's learning how to be resilient and adapt to it. And that's where all the magic happens. And everyone's body and physiology is in a different state. And yes, you can create general recommendations, like we said, the 6 minute class that we do in Remedy, that are like safe, but also we have a coach there to know when to take you out. But I think it's really interesting because some people could do way more and handle a lot more. And maybe they can because their body's trained to do so. Like Wim Hof can do more than anyone because he's trained his body to do so. And I think the body can adapt to almost anything if it's trained the right way. And I think we've always seen people push the boundaries with extremes that isn't humanly possible. And I think the body can do a lot more than we ever thought it could.
Yeah, I actually went through a Wim Hof breath session at a summit cruise back in like 2016 or something like that. And it was just truly remarkable at how he's trained his body. He truly believes that with breath, you could really get through most things in life. And I want to touch on this one thing here. Remedy Place, when you founded it and when you had the vision for it, you call it the social wellness club or the first social wellness club. And you
Yeah.
were in some ways ahead of your time, right? I mean, right now there's so much awareness around, maybe like alcohol not being a social lubricant, and that you can gather and get together in a place. And I've actually, Matthew, been to his studio in New York a couple of times, and it everything from the design to from when you enter, it really is built for social connection. And even if you don't know someone, I mean, I've gotten a couple of IV drips, and you could talk to the person who's next to you. Should you want to do that? If you want, you can also kind of close it out. But the ice bath that you are referencing, it's a bit communal. So you kind of are doing a guided session, which is good for me, because if I didn't have that, I would have jumped out. I mean, you talk about 6 minutes. I can't even sit for 3 minutes. But if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have lasted 30 seconds. So speak a bit about your vision around this being the social wellness club, and how you seeing that taking broader awareness. Because when you first came up with this, I think you were quite a bit ahead of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I started working on the concept in 2012 because I didn't want to work in a hospital. So at first, it was just let me create a beautiful space with hospitality standards and some amazing experience for the doctor and then the patient. I worked on it through my whole doctorate. When I graduated, I had this 158-page binder of a business plan. I knew nothing about business, but I Googled like everything you possibly need to know. I thought that you just get a business loan, and the woman kind of laughed at me. And she's like, "Sir, you have no money and all this student loan debt. How am I supposed to give you a loan?" And I'm like, "Well, that's why I need a loan." But then I pivoted and I transitioned. I had my private practice, which was a concierge practice in sports medicine. So just a non-surgical, non-drug approach to surgery prevention or chronic pain rehabilitation. And what I realized is I got 5 extra years of my own clinical evidence and my own firsthand experience to know what were my patients willing to do, what were they not willing to do, common lifestyle habits, common stressors, what worked and what didn't work. And I never followed anyone else's protocol. I was just trying to combine as many things as possible. And that's what practice is, right? You're testing things out with patients, and I was seeing what worked. But the number one complaint that I had over 5 years that really started even within the first year, the first time I heard the complaint was, "Dr. Leary, I feel incredible. All my problems are gone. But all these lifestyle changes that you made me implement are ruining my social life. And now I have no fun and I'm isolated and I kind of feel lonely." And that's when I changed Remedy from not just being a beautiful space, but a place that you could enhance your health and your social life at the same time. So I was trying to think of like for a date night, for what you do after work for a happy hour, what you do on a Friday night with friends, where you host your birthday. Most of the things in Remedy are not communal, but they're bookable for you and your party size. So that if it's the three of us, we would go get a suite that we would have together. And I think when I was talking about this while building the concept, that was the most, everyone would say, "John, that's the most LA thing I've ever heard. No one's going to do that." And I'm like, you're just building another spa or you're building another gym. No one got it. No matter how many times I said it, and it was still foreign. And even when we opened in 2019, until people walked in, they didn't really get it until they walked in and did a tour. And then when we would say, like, this is an example of what you could do for your date night, people started to do it. This is what you could do for your meeting. They started to do it. And the one thing that was like the tester, because I was like, if the social part didn't work, that's okay. Everyone could just go there to be better. And it's a solo experience for their treatment. We don't call them treatment. But it was interesting is that's what people really stuck to. When building this, like we trademarked and created social wellness club and social self-care and all of these terminology that sounded weird, but now they're getting global attention. And I think what's exciting is what people used to say is so woo-woo when I would say, human connection is so important for our health. Now we're starting to get the statistics on how important human connection is for our longevity. And then coincidentally, it wasn't the plan that alcohol consumption was going to go down so much, but it is. And younger generations are drinking less and less. And if you remove the one thing that everyone does when they socialize, they're going to need a new experience. And those experiences can be a wide array of things, but for our clientele that don't have a lot of time, they would always say, like, I don't have time to do that. And now I would say, well, now you have to socialize with people. You have to take care of yourself. You need to have a little fun. Why can't you do that all at once? And I think that's really what we've been able to kind of master. And, we opened that first club 2019 and then a new one 2022 and then one last year. And then we have one opening in a little over a month. And it's exciting because now we understand and know from a business standpoint and from a consumer standpoint and from a data standpoint, everything that we need to do moving forward. And we've been doing this and working on this for so long that I find like we finally just figured everything out that we need to figure out. And now it's time to really go for it. So I'm excited for people to see the next club and the changes there. And then I'm excited for people to see what's to come after that because we're really innovating every single thing in a whole new way. And I think the world's finally ready for it.
Are seated machines slowing your members down? With many people spending the whole day sitting in their car, at the office, and in front of screens, then you have to ask yourself, should you really be sitting down when you're exercising? As seated machines do not promote all body movement, then a solution that encourages standing, putting the body in an upright position, will make workouts more effective. Help your members break from sedentary habits with more active training. Are you interested in creating a more dynamic workout environment? Then contact us today. One of the things I was looking through your 7 pillars, and one of the ones that I wanted to ask you about was this connection, cultivating meaningful relationships, finding community, and bringing intention to every interaction. And it was relevant because I had a conversation with somebody yesterday that was in the healthcare space, and they were talking about some of the sort of interventions for people that had quite serious diseases, and they were trying to understand why, how certain people got through them and managed to survive beyond what was predicted in terms, when they had certain cancers, and people that didn't. And one of the things that started to come through on some of this research, even though it wasn't sort of conclusive, was the impact of people that had some form of community, where they had people around them, as opposed to people that were going through these treatments in isolation. And I suppose in some way, it kind of makes sense having people there that care for you and that are around you. But in terms of this sort of connection in relation to your business model, like what have you what research have you done on that? And is there anything that's interesting to share as it relates to the importance of this connection, particularly like you're in New York and big city, and although there's lots of people around, there's probably not really too much connection going on either. Particularly in some of these big cities where there isn't that community. So what have you what have you what's your perspective on that, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, on your last statement, I think it's the exact opposite. I think a place like New York City has the most connections, and I think people think of this as like this busy city that's not as healthy. I live between LA and New York. And I actually think that New York is a healthier city than LA. And I think that's because people walk more. I think it's because their life's a lot more spontaneous and because they have a lot more human connection. The amount of opportunities to interact with people by just walking down the street is endless. And I think there's something really special when people feel that energy of New York City. I think that's because of the amount of human connection that is stacked in one place, which is really interesting because I really thought that by living in New York that I don't have access to all the things I had in LA. I don't have space. I don't have as much nature, and I was worried that maybe my health would be on the decline. And what I actually saw and see now is that I'm healthier than I've ever been in the most stressed state that I've ever been. And I'm the most happiest I've ever been in the most stressed state I've ever been. And then it kind of falls into this philosophy too, where if I'm using stress as a tool, like science has shown that moderate stress enhances performance and enhances memory. It's about balancing that proper amount and then learning how to adapt and handle more. But to get back to your question about the human connection, you are or become the people that you surround yourself with. And I think there's things that we are working on behind the scenes that I want to start being able to test more in the club, the impact of that. But as a general rule, there's a lot of studies coming out, even just like in like workplaces, being around, a certain amount of people that elevate you. I forget, I can get the actual statistic. I don't know off the top of my head, but the research is just showing, like being around higher achievers makes you a higher achiever. Being around one bad apple in an office space can bring everyone's productivity down drastically. And I think it just kind of all comes back to the same thing, that if we know all these blue zones are around community, we know the importance of human connection on mental health. And then through the pandemic, there's so much research on the impact of isolation on physical health. I mean, the US Surgeon General just released a thing saying full isolation is as negatively as negative an influence on your health as 6 alcoholic beverages a day. I mean, and if you look over the past 20 years, there's another study from 2023 to 2020. And if you look at the average national statistic of human interaction, from our partners to our friendships to external communities to family, they are all drastically declining. In isolation, people being alone is higher than it's ever been. And my worry with that is that isolation now they're correlating also not just to mental health but to physical health. And that's what's scary because we're more digitally connected than ever before. We're also sicker than we've ever been before. So these things that are happening, whether it's environmental, whether it's our healthcare, whether it's how we approach our health, whether it's the isolation, I see that there's so many things that need to be addressed to make people better. And living longer while not having the quality of life is not the goal. And this whole thing about anti-aging is kind of, I think it's gimmicky. Our body repairs, right? You get a cut, scabs over. You break a bone, builds bone. But if we could truly anti-age, we wouldn't die. And I think the goal for me and my patients is always to tell them and to set expectations. I think you can actively age. And my goal with my patients and myself and everyone I talk to, I want to make you look and feel better as you get older, because you can do that. You can be happier. You can perform better. You can be more resilient. But to say that we're going to reverse your aging, I actually just think that's repairing, and our body does a great job at repairing. But as of now, we're all going to pass away one day. So there's only so much that you can do, whether it's repair to anti-aging, if that makes sense.
I think you brought up this really good point around stress. In so many ways, the last decade or so, with this growth of wellness, we are kind of reframing how we think about words and also emotion. So as an example, you talked about stress. I've learned, I mean, stress, maybe 20 years ago had a negative connotation to it. But if you
Yeah.
reframe stress today, you understand that stress actually helps you improve motivation. It helps improve performance. It will help improve your immune system. To your point, I was talking about contrast therapy, increased brain activity. So if you just lived in this world where you are completely stress-free, it's actually going to be detrimental to your health, not beneficial to your health. And a lot of people don't understand that. I want to touch on one thing which you wrapped up here in the last response around living forever. So Brian Johnson, has
Yeah.
been in the news. Most people have heard of him. His Netflix documentary is getting some views, and he's got this campaign around Don't Die. He released a framework called the Blueprint. He's got associated products around it. He is a controversial figure, and even Huberman has mentioned things about him. I don't know if Peter Thiel said something, but I'm sure he's got opinions around him. You're also a leader in the category. I'd love to get your viewpoint on Blueprint because you've got your own, you know, your own version called the framework, which is a little bit kind of different. But I'm just
Yeah.
curious to get your thoughts around it. Yeah.
Yeah. Ours is very different, right? Like the end goal for Remedy Place is just to be a free educational platform. So the framework is our first way to give back as we collect data and we find things out, giving people not a thing that they have to go to Remedy to do, just figuring out what do you apply to your life. It matches your lifestyle and your goals. Like the framework are just trainings that are adaptable to make you think about things different and add new routines and add small changes to build. I think we just hosted an event at Remedy Place in LA for Brian's. They just did like their VIP dinner the night before at the club before their conference last week, or maybe a week and a half ago. I think what Brian's doing for science is great. Um, at the end of the day, anyone trying to find out more ways to help people or to figure out anything we have going on in health that will also pull a lot of money and research and data into it, it's a win. I mean, I think people, you don't have to agree with his methods or his personality type or his style of what he's trying to do, because there's a million ways to address longevity or anti-aging or whatever you want to call it. And I think at the very high level, I appreciate someone doing what he's doing because I don't think
Sure.
most people would be willing to do that. Um, I, I think his intentions are really pure. I think they are good. If I was to be on a protocol, mine would be it would be different because I think I have different philosophies where he has a lot of experiential work within like medical side, where I really think that the body responds best holistically and enhancing its own internal systems. Also, the human connection component to things that I don't know, there's a lot on the other side, but those aren't going to be tested conventionally. Um, but yeah, I want to make sure that anyone trying to do good in this industry, I think it's important to acknowledge and try to understand. And at the end of the day, in order to, it's always good to come from a place of understanding and ask questions. I do have a bunch of questions, but I'm excited to see what he would do. I don't think he'll be successful at not dying, but outside of that, I appreciate it.
I guess developments in AI now, where there's a number of companies. I think Larry Ellison's somebody that's sort of hit the press over the last week, where they're using AI to make some really interesting predictions of when it comes to drugs and being able to predict what will happen to people as they get older. And you could kind of imagine where that is going to take us over the next few years, particularly as it relates to the conversation that we've had. And being able to sort of address certain issues that do prevent people from living longer and to maybe have certain interactions with those things. What are your thoughts on health and technology, which are seemingly health technology and I guess healthcare coming together? And what's sort of top of your mind in that respect that maybe you're able to share?
Yeah. I think advancements in AI and technology are going to make things far more accessible. And I think one of the biggest things that we have as a problem with our healthcare is accessibility, but also lack of time or lack of education. At the end of the day, I always say your body is your number one asset and you don't even know how it works. Never mind how to take care of it. No one's here to make you healthy. Only you can make you healthy. But if you don't know how to do it, it should be a major thing that's ingrained in our schooling. I think AI will allow us to have access to a lot more education. I think what's interesting is like the average doctor visit in America is 8 minutes long. Please tell me how I get to understand you, understand your problems, and teach you what you need to do. You can't. Our medical system has taught you symptom, drug, symptom, surgery. And I think AI is going to find cures ish in medications and surgery. I think we're going to learn a lot, but I think we need to understand that being on medication is not the result of being healthy. If I asked everyone on this call, if you were the healthiest individual in the world, if I open up your medicine cabinet, is it going to have medicine or is it going to be empty? And I think we already have so many side effects to all of these drugs. We can make advancements to make drugs stronger or more unique, but putting a synthetic compound in the body's always going to have to react to it. And the body's never been trained to react to these synthetic compounds. But unless it's a natural product, I think the body's always going to have a hard time reacting. And I think if we're already having a hard time responding to the the level of technology and formulations, everything that's going into it now, if you make it far more complex, is that going to cause more side effects, but be able to cure cancer, but then cause another problem? And I think it's interesting because I don't think the advancements in AI is medication and surgery will save your life, but medication and surgery is not going to make you healthy. I don't think there's going to be a magical pill that we take that's going to help you from reversing aging. You're going to have to do the work. If you want to be lazy, like you can live longer, but it's going to be a really shitty life. And I think we've always alternative medicine's been around forever. Medicine's not been around forever. And I think there's this weird thing that alternative medicine and these natural things aren't real, but the body has the innate ability to heal when you give it the right things. But what we know today is all the things that we're putting in our body, from our food being messed with to our medications to all of these things that we never had to deal with, we are sicker than we've ever been. There's a lot of layers there. So I hope that the advancements in AI, in short, gives everyone access to understand everything that they need to know about their body, and it can read their data, it can read their blood work, and understand their lifestyle, their routines, their habits, and it's going to coach and guide them on exactly what they need to do to start making change in their life. That's where I think, and that's where our hope of remedy with advancements in AI, that's our goal. We're trying to build a brand that you trust, that you can rely on, that are the innovators in the space. And at the end of the day, I think how we change healthcare and how we change the current state of the world is not a million remedies, it's through education. And that's really what we're aim on right now. The most important thing for me is build a strong foundation so that we can do that. And that's the big goal for us.
Well, it's been incredible to hear your journey. We are coming up to time, and I'm going to be tracking your success. But one of the things that we love to wrap up lifts with is our one key takeaway of the episode. So, Matthew, I want to start with you. What are your key? I'm sure you have a ton here, but if you could narrow it down to one key takeaway, what would it be?
It's going to be, I'm going to have to check out this jaw exercise thing that Jonathan's doing, and he's going to have to give me his protocol, because I think I'm ready for the way it was described is it's almost like having a facelift. So I think I'm at that age in my life where I need to give that a go.
I haven't seen Jonathan in about maybe a year. I haven't met in person about a year, but I could definitely notice the difference. So, Matthew, I look forward to you following that protocol. Dr. Jonathan, any key takeaways, and what are you most excited about for 2025?
I think just the radical shift in awareness about health. For me, it's not about more more options. It's just that more people are being open to trying new things. And at the end of the day, when things make you feel better, you can live a better life. And I think people are just super vulnerable in a state that they just need to give a couple things a shot, find a little bit more human connection, start taking care of themselves. And I think it's just rapidly happening so fast every year since the pandemic. And I am just so grateful for this shift, because what I was always hoping for is actually happening, as far as what's happening in the industry and the changing the narrative around how we approach health and even how we approach socializing. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the future of socialization is.
Do you have any final takeaways?
Well, I think I keep on being in awe at how much, as I learn more and more and talk to experts like we are today, that you are truly in control of your own destiny. You truly have the power. You've got to take the action. And the outcomes of that are going to be far greater than any type of medical or surgical or powder-based intervention. Is you take the action, you have to be highly intentional about it, and you've got to build your lifestyle around it, and that's going to lead to a quality life, right? Not just about living long, but also about enjoying the time that you have here. So I was, yeah. I mean, there's a ton that I can go to, but that's probably my key takeaway.
If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who you think would find it valuable. Thank you very much for listening.